Hi, I'm Governor Greg Abbott. I want to thank you for the opportunity to congratulate this year's Barbara Jordan Media Award winners. These awards are named after a remarkable woman who had the courage to break barriers and build opportunities for others. Her perseverance inspires us still. I'm proud to honor Sarah Barnes. She depicts the obstacles that stereotypes create in her book, Meredith and Me, a mother and daughter on a profoundly different journey. Greg Grugan and John Starling for Shredders, the story of a Houston entrepreneur who focuses not on what his disability prevents him from doing, but on how he can create opportunities for others. David Chancellor, for his inspiring feature, Local Paralympic Athlete, Another Step Closer to His Dream. It tells the story of Daniel Velasquez, a track and field athlete born with cerebral palsy, who was told he would never walk. Bob Phillips, Brian Hawkins, and Kelly Phillips for introducing us to Cheeto, the hardest working man in Del Rio who proves that hard work, determination, and self-respect can go hand in hand with profound disability. Ulan Stevens, foretelling about those with intellectual or developmental disabilities as able contributors to the workforce. In his story, State Pays Some Workers with Disabilities Pennies per Hour. Rodolfo Gonzalez and Kelly West for their video, Team Manager Inspired Georgetown Eagles to Soar. It's a story about Jared, a man with a developmental disability whose passion for baseball knows no bounds. Also, John Savage for his skillful telling of The Waiting Game. It's a story about Betty Calderon, a 33-year-old homeless woman with disabilities who lacks access to services. Steve Habel for the story of Brian Gwinling, whose live performances and music videos help people who are deaf or hard of hearing finally enjoy the music. Kelvin Anderson, Ray Barrera, Ken Bowden, Jason Lakia, and Joe Maloney for showing the significant impact volunteers have on the community in their video, Why Do We Volunteer? David Talley for his educational article on the life of a college student with a visual impairment titled The Navigation Equation, How Blind Students Take on Texas Tech. And Leah Konzal and Jeanette Perez for their documentary, Salsa and the Machine, about the power of hope for a young man with end-stage renal disease. The First Lady joins me in congratulating all of you. Your powerful portrayals of people with disabilities reminds us that our lives aren't measured by how we're challenged. Instead, they're measured by how we respond to those challenges. We'd also like to thank the University of Texas at Arlington for hosting this event. A special congratulations to the Lady Mavs wheelchair basketball team on their first national championship, and to the Moving Mavs on their third place finish. May God bless you, and may God forever bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
I really think that this is an exciting event. It is exciting because it honors people who are communicators, communicating the reality of life as it is for people who have disabilities.
It is destruction and creation at the very same time. To truly understand that seeming contradiction, you must first meet a 23-year-old carving out what most would consider a pretty darn compelling career.
Hi, my name is James Parker, and I own a mobile shredding business called Shredding on the Go. I do the shredding myself, and I really like it.
Born with the ultra-rare neurological disorder known as Allen-Herndon syndrome, James has never walked and cannot talk. But in this house, Renee Parker's house, there has always been the faith-driven expectation that a beloved son would someday become a productive worker.
James is going to be employed and we're going to start a business, but at that time I had no idea what that business would be.
And so here, the focus became far less on what James couldn't do and far more on what he could.
We were talking about James's strengths and weaknesses, and his grandma said, well, when he comes to my house, he puts paper in my shredder. We had no idea how God was going to use that one skill to turn it into a business.
And a heck of a business it's become. Launching alone nearly 5 years ago with a single machine, James Parker slowly but steadily built his clientele, delivering completely confidential document destruction with mobile on-site service that's true to his company's name, Shredding on the Go.
And he knows that he is doing something meaningful.
And it gets better. When a broken arm threatened to sidetrack James's growing business, an unexpected blessing doubled the company's workforce.
I was like, I can do that job.
Tim Farrell is blind, challenged with cerebral palsy, and until the day he was hired by James Parker, had never had the opportunity to earn a dollar he could call his own.
I just feel that everybody, challenge or no challenge, needs to have some type of work.
With no fewer than 10 corporate contracts and a host of satisfied customers remaining solidly loyal, James's payroll has since exploded sixfold.
His story captured the heart of so many and the spirit so many wish they had. Daniel has been told no or he can't so many times in his life he's lost count. Won't live, won't walk, certainly won't play sports. As I said a year ago, Daniel is the true definition of an athlete, and I'm proud to say that after another year of hard work and dedication, my friend is closer than ever to becoming an athlete for Team USA. It's a question I'm guessing Daniel never considered, but what happens when you stop chasing your dream and start living it? So much, and at the same time, so little has changed in a year for Daniel Velasquez. So when we talked with him earlier this month, of course it was on a track because, well, Daniel is always on a track.
I mean, I've put on a bunch of muscle. I would say I couldn't tell with my coaches from what they've seen my growth over the year. Times are improving. I'm getting stronger, and that's all that matters right now.
How much muscle are we talking about?
I couldn't say. I would say not much, but people who see me would say a lot. So who knows?
Let's just put it this way: when you go to the beach, you take your shirt off with pride and kind of walk around.
I'm not embarrassed to take my shirt off. I don't know if pride is the right word.
That's Daniel, both humble and driven, like no athlete I've ever met. The kid who was born with cerebral palsy, who was told he'd never walk, who survived a childhood filled with surgeries and doctor visits, now runs for himself, for those who can't, and in many ways, above all else, he now runs for his school. That alone is a sentence he thought he'd never hear, but one he certainly earned.
You have a goal, and you do whatever it takes to get it done. And so some people look at that and say, you know, wow, that's amazing and this is great, and it is. But at the same time, it's just part of the routine and part of the whole goal for me.
Daniel is a college athlete, a member of UT Arlington's Paralympic track team. In fact, he's the only member.
I'm the first recruit for their Paralympic program. And so basically I'm the only one there, and they focus solely on me right now. My job right now is to train and compete for them and wear their shirt, and then when I get back home it's recruit, get more people out there, and we're really trying to build the program.
You're a trendsetter. You're a pioneer.
I wouldn't say that. I just knew what I wanted to do when I got to college, and so I found a way to do that.
No one who knows Daniel is surprised. The first time we met, he was training in a garage. It was a small step to a much bigger goal, to earn a spot on the U.S. Paralympic team. And although he is still chasing that dream, he does wear the red, white, and blue.
I'm on the USA U23 national team, so that's kind of the stepping stone to the big leagues and the big national team.
My work takes me all over the city, and it seemed like for years, everywhere I would go, I kept seeing this guy. I didn't know his name, I didn't know anything about him, I just would see him every day, pushing a lawnmower down the side of the road with a bunch of carts behind him. Whenever I first saw Cheeto, I probably did what a lot of people did initially, and that was just to kind of dismiss him as maybe a homeless person or a vagrant, or I didn't know what he was, you know. But I realized that there was something special about him. He cannot talk. He's been disabled his entire life.
They call him Cheeto. And for more than a decade, this man and his long train of tattered tools has been a fixture along the highways and side streets of Del Rio. You'd be hard-pressed to find a patch of grass or weeds that Cheeto has not mowed in this town. He is an uncomplicated man whose twisted limbs make even the simplest of motions painful. But in spite of his disabilities, Cheeto has become a one-man landscape crew at all hours of the day and night. And he does it with no compensation at all.
Cheeto! You got everything you need? Nobody is paying him to do this right now. He does it for free. If he sees grass around town that needs cutting, he cuts it.
And he'll just do this for hours on end?
Hours on end, all day long. I mean, on the hottest of days. I mean, in the middle of summer, he'll be out here doing it. It seems crazy to us, but it makes perfect sense to him. He started doing it for free just to prove to people that he could do it. And then it got to where he got paying customers, you know, and so now he has customers all over town that pay him.
But this here in the median
all
is
this
not.
that you see right here that he mows in the median is the highway department's responsibility.
He doesn't get paid for that.
He didn't get paid a dime. I think what he's trying to tell you, Kelly, is his dad passed away, and he does his best to take care of his mom. And he is the breadwinner of their family.
It's all
And
you.
That's right. That's right.
Is that hard?
It's been very hard.
If you find yourself in Del Rio, Texas, look for the flags, the orange cones, and the wagons strung out along the pavement. And you're bound to see a man called Cheeto. Watch him for a while, and you'll understand why, even though his bent and twisted body is barely 5 feet tall, Cheeto is a man who many in these parts look up to.
No matter what happens tonight, whether we're up 6 or tied at 6, doesn't matter. We're not going away.
Before every game, we go down the line and you know, we just kind of talk about, reiterate our game plans, things we're going to focus on, and then we kneel down and we pray. The very first year he was with us, we go over to Eastview, our crosstown rival, and Jared is in the middle of the huddle, and he tells Brindley to hang on a second, and he kneels down and he starts leading the prayer. And it was one of the coolest God moments ever. I mean, I get goosebumps just even thinking about it.
go. Eagles on 3, 1, 2, 3, go!
I can hear him from the parking lot when I'm waiting in the dugout. He just says, "Oh, Jack." It was different at first. It's a different experience. The younger guys, when they come in, they're like, "Whoa, who's this?" And then, it takes like 5 minutes, and they're already hanging out with Jared, and Jared's already hugging them and being nice. So, he makes it really easy to get along with him. He has such a good attitude all the time, and even if we don't, we can just look over at Jared, and he boosts our spirits.
Make no mistake about it, Jared Frimmel is exceptionally competitive, and he does not like losing. And he does understand the game, and he loves baseball. And really, man, he bonds with our kids, and our kids bond with him, and every day is the most important day to Jared. What Jared brings is a daily reminder that all we're doing is we're just playing a game. And at the end of the day, it's still just a game. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter.
He's just a guy who loves baseball, loves all of us, and we love him too. It's been a blast.
The Waiting Game by John Savage, The Texas Observer. With no place to go, many Texans with intellectual disabilities end up on the streets. It's 9 a.m. on one of the coldest days of the year, and 33-year-old Betty Calderon is brushing her long black hair in anticipation of seeing her fiancé. For the last 2 weeks, Ernest Rodriguez has been locked up at the Travis County Jail for aggravated assault by strangulation. He is accused of choking Calderon until she almost blacked out. Calderon has been homeless for more than 2 years. She receives Social Security disability income, but because of an intellectual disability, she has trouble managing money. People steal from her, and sometimes she splurges on things like Air Jordans and can't afford to buy food at the end of the month. Calderon has type 2 diabetes, which is tough to manage when food is something you find rather than buy. Her dental hygiene has deteriorated to the point that decay has eaten a hole in her front 2 teeth. As many as 73,000 Texans with intellectual disabilities are on a waiting list to receive home and community-based services, such as employment assistance, behavioral counseling, dental care, and placement in small group homes with around-the-clock caregivers. In contrast, at least 17 other states have wait lists with fewer than 1,000 people. For someone signing up today, the wait to receive services could be as long as 14 years. Meanwhile, Betty Calderon is used to waiting. A well-run group home in a residential neighborhood with around-the-clock access to a professional caregiver might be ideal for Calderon. It would get her off the street and potentially save her life. In the last few years, Texas has worked to move people with intellectual disabilities from the state schools to residential settings, including small group homes with caregivers who provide supervision, support, and the encouragement to perform daily tasks such as preparing meals, practicing personal hygiene, and managing money. Advocates say such an approach fosters independence, social inclusion, and self-esteem. While most advocates welcome the shift, a fundamental problem remains: chronic underfunding. Texas ranks 49th in the country for spending on community-based services for people with intellectual disabilities, according to a 2013 report from the University of Colorado.
Signs lead to new calling. Ex-Bobcats reserve becomes star on video with a song for deaf by Steve Havel, Austin American-Statesman. It's been a whirlwind summer for Brian Gwendling, who began it as a little-known third-string defensive end for Texas State's football team, but has, in a matter of weeks, become a viral video star and a hit with the deaf community for a song he had performed in sign language during a concert. At a time when most college football players are gearing up for the heat of two-a-day practices, Gwendling instead is learning specific music-centric parts of American Sign Language in an attempt to help those who are deaf or hard of hearing enjoy modern music. Last month, he released a video in which he performs a song in sign language with some of his former Bobcats teammates in the background. The professionally produced video, shot at a San Marcos bar in mid-June, has received nearly 215,000 views on YouTube. On July 18th, Gwendling attended his first Deaf Night Out event at the Moon Tower Saloon in South Austin, where he was quickly recognized by people who had seen the video. There was a group of deaf people surrounding him and taking pictures and making conversations with him, Regina Alonzo, who is deaf and was there that night, said via email. I was impressed that he made efforts to use sign language to communicate with them. We need more people like him. I looked deep into my heart and determined that I can help more people by concentrating on my sign language efforts than I could with football, Gwendling said. I understand that the fact I played college football had a lot to do with the attention I received from my efforts with the deaf, but to me, that just allowed me to get out the word about what I can do and how I can help. The 6'4", 235-pound junior appeared in 4 games for Texas State last year, registering a pair of tackles. He transferred to Texas State after 2 years at Palomar Junior College in California and a redshirt freshman season at Nevada. His father, Mike, was a second-round draft choice of the San Diego Chargers as a linebacker in 1984. It was a tough decision for Brian to make, but he has to be commended for doing what he thinks is best for him, Francione said. He would have been a contributor to the Texas State football team this season, and we were looking forward to getting him back on the field, but we wish him the best. Gwendling, 22, was born with a slight disability and didn't speak until he was 4 years old. Because he had trouble with his short-term memory and understanding the fundamentals of grammar, Gwendling took special education classes that eventually allowed him to develop an added appreciation for people with disabilities, he said. Gwendling has 2 uncles with severe disabilities. Both are blind and can't feed or care for themselves, he said. Gwendling took sign language in high school and at a college in San Diego. He worked for months to perfect the routine he filmed in San Marcos, signing to Mark Ronson's Uptown Funk. Brian's vibe and aura are very positive, Ash Schemenauer, who is deaf and met Gwendling at his Moon Tower event, said via email. He's very into the deaf culture. I offered him help as a personal ASL tutor. He's shown a lot of motivation and works very hard at it. Now he's learning the words and the signs to 4 more songs, with the hope of performing a 5-song concert for the deaf in the coming months.
Why do we volunteer?
Come play. Oh, honey, I will soon. I'm kind of tired. Can you go up and show me what you're doing? Okay.
Margaret is looking tired and depressed as Rusty approaches.
Well, hi, Margaret. How in the world are you doing? I haven't seen you. Oh, I'm just a little bit tired. Well, you know, I teach exercise, and I wish you would come join the class. It is so much fun, and you'll meet a lot of interesting people.
We volunteer to help dreams get fulfilled. Like when Tanya first recognized Susie's potential. Susie is a dancer with disabilities. Her instructor Tanya watches as Susie goes through a routine on her wheelchair and sees her potential. After class, Tanya approaches Susie.
You were right on it, man, I'm telling you. You know, have you ever thought about performing before?
No.
I'd be willing to help you, and we can work together.
Okay.
All right?
We champion others, such as the first day Margaret joined Texercise.
So, if you would, everybody stand up.
Rusty notices Margaret standing hesitantly at the gym entrance.
Oh, Margaret, come on in. I'm so glad you came to our Texercise class today. Welcome. This is my friend that I met in the neighborhood park.
We do these things not because it's expected of us.
So I really want you to really come forward and get that arm up in the air. Reach, 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 reach.
Tanya takes the time to work with Susie on her dance routine. The two exchange a smile as Susie lifts her arm.
Pull it up.
Margaret continues to attend Texercise classes, smiling through each exercise and pushing herself farther than she has before.
Very good.
We encourage others.
When you do the final performance, I mean, it's really beautiful, Susie. I believe in you.
Tanya has no shortage of encouragement for Susie as she circles the gym on her wheelchair, rehearsing the movements of her dance. We may not always see the result of our service. Rusty is taking her morning walk when she spots Margaret playing with her grandson. Rusty can't help but smile.
If I wasn't on it for like 2 weeks straight, I could literally die in 2 weeks. So right now I do hemodialysis. I was born with polycystic kidney disease. Back then, during that time, I had a kidney then, right? So then that kidney started to go down. I was in junior high at the time, and they got me on peritoneal dialysis. And I did that 3 times a week, literally through junior high, high school, college. I've been on dialysis ever since. 2, 3. I mean, you could do it like that. I never really limited myself, and I think dialysis really taught me that. I have 2 businesses. One I'm already running, and then another one that I'm starting, right? And then of course I dance. I'm on a bachata team, and in addition to that, I mean I also sing, and and I'm in a band. My body and this machine are one for like 6 hours. And I control, when I do dialysis, I control literally every aspect. My life is in my hands. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. Hope you have the time of your something unpredictable, in the end is right. Hope you have the time of your life.
Meredith and Me, A Mother and Daughter on a Profoundly Different Journey by Sarah Barnes. Sarah Barnes and her husband, Jim Hemphill, had big plans. She was a reporter for the Austin American-Statesman, and he had begun his career as a lawyer. They were just getting the hang of being new parents when they were blindsided by the medical news that their baby, Meredith, was missing part of her brain. Sarah rushed to find therapy that would help Meredith meet her milestones of walking and talking, but it became clear before first grade that her daughter's disabilities were going to be a lifelong challenge. Over time, Sarah grew into an advocate, fighting stereotypes and archaic school policies, especially in the middle school setting. She began speaking out about experiences with Meredith to groups and individuals, many of whom have the power to change attitudes through education. This book, which spans 18 years, is as much a story about finding fortitude and hope as it is a narrative about what happens behind the scenes of a family with a daughter who has intellectual and physical disabilities. It will be eye-opening to many. Her hair was blonde and wispy like mine. A few fine, stray hairs had escaped and were blowing around her pudgy face. "It's always windy here, Meredith. Why is that?" I asked, putting my face close to hers to make sure she could hear me above the surf and wind. It was hard talking to a 3-year-old and not getting chatter back. Even though I had been with Meredith through her diagnosis and speech therapy, I never got used to her inability to form words. I longed for that conversation, where she'd ask a question and I'd answer and we'd go back and forth about nothing important. It would come. I looked out at the ocean and counted the rows of waves coming in, something I've done since I learned to jump them. It was late afternoon and the wind was stirring up the water and making it a pretty good surf day, especially for Texas. Meredith squinted her eyes and giggled like she had the hiccups. I knew she wouldn't experience the beach like I did because she couldn't walk, but in another way, the beach was the big equalizer. She was a toddler in a swimsuit who was excited about the water and sand, just like everyone else. I couldn't wait to tell Jim about our experience. "I hope we find a sand dollar," I told Meredith. As we got a bit closer to the surf, I watched the waves rush toward us, curl, and then crash into the sand. I had no idea what Meredith would do with all this sensory excitement, but I couldn't wait to find out.
Let me introduce you to Kyle.
Open the plastic liner it was in, stick the napkin in, and then he would stick a knife in, open it, stick a fork in, open it, stick a spoon in.
Kyle worked in San Angelo packing plastic silverware for fast food restaurants. He and about 20 other people sat at a table for hours a day, stuffing hundreds of these bags. At the end of the week, Kyle got his first paycheck.
I opened the check and I was standing close to the staff desk and I looked at it and I was like, what the f-? I mean, $13? Really? What can I buy with $13? That's basically illegal. That's not minimum wage.
In fact, it's absolutely legal. You see, Kyle lives with an intellectual disability, and he was working at a sheltered workshop. That's a segregated and supervised working facility for people with intellectual disabilities, where, under federal law, employers don't have to pay minimum wage. Some are attached to state-supported living facilities. Many are associated with charitable organizations or are part of government programs, and they get contracts with state and municipal agencies.
Texas has 113 providers that employ people at sub-minimum wage.
That's Sean Bickley. He's with the Texas Advocates. He lobbies on behalf of people with intellectual disabilities. He showed me a spreadsheet of sheltered workshops. In one column was the amount of its government contract, and in another, how much employees are paid.
Ooh, $1.6 million to Expanco Inc. in Fort Worth. I know what that is. And they're hiring 178 people for 35 cents an hour. And the CEO makes $102,000 a year. Oh, what's this? Oh, Goodwill Fort Worth gets $3.7 million here. And they have 111 workers making anywhere from $2 to $6.45 an hour.
Pay rates are based on a complicated system matching contract codes per piece of work completed. Department of Labor records show that employees at the State-Supported Living Center make as little as 14 cents an hour, doing work for government agencies. In 2013, the Texas legislature passed the Employment First Law. It's designed to promote living wages for the disabled and their integration into the general workforce, a law that advocates and its authors admit lacks punch. State Senator Judith Zaffirini.
Do we want it corrected overnight? Absolutely. Can it be done? Perhaps not. And I, for one, am committed to do my best to resolve the situation as quickly as possible, always in the best interest of persons with disabilities.
Zaffirini says part of the holdup is that people who run these workshops still believe this is good work. Lee Dunson runs an Austin group home.
We've had a lot of people that have been looking for jobs for years and haven't found anything. And when they've had an opportunity to be in a sheltered workshop situation, some of them have jumped on it, even if it is low pay, because it's a job.
Senator Zaffirini says she's working with stakeholders and state agencies to judge on how best to implement the Employment First law. That may require new legislation, but nothing's been filed yet. I'm Alon Stevens for the Texas Standard.
The Navigation Equation: How Blind Students Take on Texas, by David Talley, The Hub, Texas Tech University. George Stern, a junior journalism major from Lauderdale Lakes, Florida, said he's been blind since he was 2 years old. Stern said he's found ways to navigate around Texas Tech University, the nation's second largest contiguous campus, by using his other senses and working with his guide dog, Vale. Blind students overcome a unique set of challenges in attending classes on Texas Tech's 1,839 acres. Stern said he prefers to learn about his surroundings as a whole, rather than in specific chunks. Think of how you learn about a location, he said. You don't live by a set route. I think people think blind people are confined to a certain routine that they practice over and over again. They can't branch out from that. But I have interests that grow and change, so my itinerary will grow and change. When I got to Tech, I essentially did a lot of exploring, Stern said. Whenever I'd meet someone, I'd ask for a general lay of the land, the broad strokes. I have a very good memory for things like that. It's essentially just a question of me and the dog memorizing things at the same time, which is not the textbook way to learn. You're supposed to get to know the area with your cane first, then bring the dog. I didn't care about doing things officially. I was just having fun. Anita Page, a researcher at the Virginia Murray Sowell Center for Research and Education in Visual Impairment, said she teaches campus orientation at Texas Tech for several of the more than 40 visually impaired students at the university. There's a technique we call shorelining, she said. They'll run their cane over from the sidewalk to the grass as they walk along the edge of the path. It keeps them straight. And when they hit sidewalk on both sides, they know they've reached an intersection. Blind students memorize these features by walking the campus and working with individualized, manipulatable Velcro maps, Page said. These maps feature tangible, movable sections made to represent buildings, sidewalks, roads, bushes, and other campus features. The person walking has to be aware of time to keep them on track, she said. There may be other things they're aware of, like sound sources, and other changes, like subtle gradients. Stern said this isn't always easy, because sensory details present one day may be gone the next. For instance, he said the fountain between the English and Philosophy building and the College of Education isn't reliable, which presents issues. They don't post an announcement like, "Hey, blind people, the fountain will be off today. Please don't use it to navigate by," Stern said. Sometimes, even constant, tangible support for the blind can't be counted on, Page said. Braille signs may be wrong. Those responsible for placing the signs usually can't read them.
I am delighted that these persons who are recipients of these awards today understand the reality that is important, crucial, urgent that it be communicated.